Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, I think. Yes, it is Thursday, April 30th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you once a week, and we basically discuss. It doesn't happen once a week. It happens 5 times a week. It happens daily. I'm going to turn my thing off because I just got distracted by my phone beeping on me. It happens daily, and we talk about the goings on in the hockey world. And today we're going to get into our predictions for this second round, and all sorts of things. But first we have to talk about that game last night, which was a really it was a good Game 7, and now we know the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win the Stanley Cup. So there's that. We're putting away Detroit today.
Yes, we are putting Detroit away. I had some theme music, but it was Angel by Sarah McLachlan. But
it really should be Motown. I mean, if you're going to put it away.
Oh no, it could be Detroit Rock City by Kiss, because at the end there's a car crash. But
it was a good game. I mean, it was a much. And it was Detroit's game, right, Kevin? This is what they wanted. This is the kind of game they play.
Yeah, it was a very entertaining game, but even when they were out shooting them by 2-1, and they being the Red Wings, they never really were in control of that game.
Right.
Like I never felt like the Lightning, were being pressed. Like it was sort of one and done with the shots. Like the Red Wings played a really strong defensive game and gave themselves an opportunity to win. But I think the Lightning, it was probably Bishop's best game. He wasn't spectacular, but in previous games I think he had given up some bad goals, and obviously he made the saves he needed to make in Game 7. And that was the crucial part. And if you're looking for the reasons why the Lightning won that series, you start with the fact that they were the best 5-on-5 team in the first round of the playoffs. They really couldn't get anything going on their power play.
Right.
The Red Wings did a good job of penalty killing, but they scored a lot of goals 5-on-5. Tyler Johnson was as dynamic in that first round as you'll see anybody be in a playoff series. I mean, it really reminded me of Pavel Bure. Just the way he could scoot around the ice and just seemed to find the seams in the defense. And I wrote a little thing today for the win section about I think the odds makers don't have it quite right, which means the bettors don't have it quite right. Right now, the Lightning are 15-2 odds to win the Stanley Cup, and this might be the time to put a few bob on the on the Lightning, because I wouldn't make them the favorite, but I think they're one of the favorites. Certainly. I mean, they got a mobile defense. They have the best scoring team in the NHL. As long as Bishop plays pretty sound, I thought it was interesting. John Cooper said at one point in the series, and this is a standard line, but I think it's really relevant to the Lightning, and that is that you don't always need your goalies to win them series, but you always need them not to lose it for you.
Yeah.
And again, a standard line. But when he said that for this Lightning team, I think it was meaningful, because this Lightning has a lot of ways to beat you. It's a very tenacious team. It's got some size, and they mobility on the defense. So they just need Bishop to play pretty sound in net, and I think they're in business. And as you pointed out yesterday, and I utilized today as well, is just their records against the teams that are remaining. Really, the Washington Capitals are the only team that have a winning record. The only team remaining in the playoffs that has a winning record against the Lightning this season. So, and it was 2-1. I mean, they beat them twice out of 3 games. So, I think the Lightning, it was a very good win for them. It was a very entertaining series. I think the Red Wings, although disappointed by another first-round exit, they lost to Boston last season. They have to be pleased with, and they could have easily won that series as well. So, and maybe they discovered a goalie. I think at worst, if you're Mrazek, you're in a competition next year with Howard, and it's a real live competition. At best, you come in as the #1 goalie.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I think he's won that job, and it's interesting to how they're going to handle it. And who's going to handle it, I guess, is the other point. That had to be the big thing last night, Kevin, after the game. I mean, that was what now? Like Babcock is officially a URC. I'm calling it an unrestricted coach. So he's he's a URC, and he is and he's an unrestricted coach at this point.
Well, it's interesting. That's the subject of my piece in USA Today tomorrow. I'll be writing about that, and I think what's fascinating about it, what none of us anticipated at the start of the season was the number of vacancies that there will be when he finally chooses. Like, I think the odds of him leaving increased because, or improved, depending on how you look at it, simply because there's so many vacancies. So, like, any concern he might have, there's probably a team out there that looks like a nice fit for him somewhere. If he wants the money, he can go to Toronto. If he wants some young kids, he can go to the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid, or maybe the Buffalo Sabres with both Eichel and Reinhart. If he's looking for kind of a Crosby guy, he could find that in Brooklyn now, not Long Island, in Brooklyn with the Islanders. So if he wants an owner like Mike Ilitch, he can find that in Ed Schneider in Philadelphia. So he's got a lot of options, and I thought Chris Osgood, the former Red Wings goalie, who's now an analyst on Red Wings television, made a really valid point. He said he's earned this right to explore his free agency, and I agree with that. And he may just decide that he likes it in Detroit. He runs along the Detroit River every day. He raised his family here. It's a good hockey town. The fans like him. There's a lot to like, and I'm sure Mike Ilitch will pay him. I don't know if it'll pay him $5 million, but he certainly will pay him well. There's no doubt about that.
Well, first let me just talk about the series, the Game 7. Bishop early in that game was shaky. He improved as the game went along. I think Tampa was really tight early in that game. I think Detroit missed a couple opportunities to get the opening goal, and if they had have gotten the opening goal, the outcome would have been completely different. 0-0 going into the third period was, I think, in a way, a small victory for Tampa because the shots on goal, I think, dictated the fact that I think Detroit was sticking with them. And then once the Colburn goal went in, and it was not exactly a howitzer blast. It was a sort of a flubber that went behind Mrazek. I thought Tampa weathered the storm because I thought Detroit played their strongest bit of hockey after they had allowed the first goal. They were tenacious on the forecheck for like 3 or 4 minutes, and I thought that Detroit was going to tie the game. But full marks to Detroit. I mean, I did not think that they would get to a Game 7. I thought Tampa they were going to be an easy out, and I think Mrazek is going to be the number one goaltender. I would not be surprised if Jimmy Howard gets traded because there are a lot of teams out there that are looking for number one goaltenders. I don't know if they want to pay the price that Jimmy Howard is being paid right now, but I think that there might be a market for a guy like Jimmy Howard with a team like the St. Louis Blues as a possibility. I think Tampa is now going up against Montreal. We'll talk about that in the predictions in a second. I think they're well positioned. But regarding Babcock,
wait a second, Mike. Before you get Babcock, I want to mention one thing, and I'll go right back to you. Very about the game. I really there was a funny moment last night. When I was explaining to my family, because Braden Coburn was on the ice and he's skating around, and I was explaining to my family, they're like, "Well, what did the Flyers get for Braden Coburn? Like they traded him, and they were like watching him out there." And this, I think, was the first Detroit-Tampa game my kids and wife were really watching because we usually flip around, and sometimes I just have the game on in my own little TV and I have an office, and they're watching this game, and they're Braden, and I said, well, basically we got a draft pick, first round draft pick, which is really good because Braden Coburn hasn't really been that impactful for the Tampa Bay Lightning this year, and it's pretty looking like a pretty bad trade for Tampa. I said, well, how's the first round draft pick work? Well, it depends on where they get. Like if they get past this round, it becomes a worse draft pick. If they get not knocked out here, it's a better draft pick, and it's a pretty good draft. And as I'm saying this, Braden Coburn scores. Just like I said, so literally, Braden Coburn basically Braden Coburn just screwed the Flyers in a big way. He scores a goal that gives them the chance to actually progress to the next round. Suddenly, the draft pick was worth it. I mean, if it gets into the second round for Braden Coburn's goal, that's all you'll give a first-round draft pick to get out of the first round of the playoffs, right? So
I mean, that was a good deal because they got Gudas as well, and I think Gudas is a good young.
I think it's a great deal for the Flyers, but I questioned if it was a good deal for Tampa all year because Coburn had been hurt and he'd always been hurt. This wasn't a new thing. Like he was hurt in Philadelphia all the time too, so this wasn't like he suddenly just had this injury thing in Tampa. But at the end of the day, I guess the trade was worth it because he scores the big goal, right?
Yeah, on Babcock, as you mentioned in your post before the webcast, you put, I think, a list of 5 teams percentage-wise where he would go, and it was conspicuous that he did not list Toronto, which I
did not list Toronto as one of the 5 teams I thought.
In spite of the report that came out this morning out of one of the Toronto radio stations that a Babcock to Toronto would cost probably $40 million for 6 years, and it would include Babcock having a sizable say in player personnel decisions. I just don't. I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I do think. I mean, that's interesting, and again, I'll keep Toronto at 0 if that's the case because I don't think that's going to happen. But if they put that offer out there, perhaps. But Kevin, I did get a sense talking to people today that Babcock does sort of feel the pressure a little bit that top UFAs feel here, like that he does feel like this is perhaps a chance to get coaches their due, and raise the bar. Did you get that at all?
Yeah, but I do. I think he's mindful of that. However, how many coaches are really going to be in Babcock's situation? And very few. He is a decorated international coach with a Stanley Cup, with the oddity of the long playoff streak that the Red Wings have. There's a lot of factors that have sort of merged together that make him sort of this attractive. So, but I do think he is a very deep thinker, a logical guy, and I think he's he would be concerned about the coaching fraternity. So I think he will give that some consideration. But it's. I think this is I think anybody that says they know what he's going to do is really kidding themselves, because I don't think he knows what he's going to do. I think this is a tough situation for him to be in. Like I was sympathetic toward, and I thought he handled it pretty well. Like, I mean, you have to ask when you're a journalist, about the situation. But right after he lost Game 7, do you think did that journalist ever actually believe he was actually giving some thought to that? And again, I understand because I've been in the position to have to ask that too. But come on.
There's a whole, that's what breakdown days for, right? I mean, there's a whole day.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think he will discuss it. And yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating thing. And the only point that I think is kind of worth something else to throw out is that even though I think the Ilitch family likes Mike Babcock, with the options that they have available to them and Jeff Blashill, with the fact that this is a team still in transition, with the fact that Babcock has this opportunity to hit this major home run, do they just sort of look at this as the way David Poile looked at Barry Trotz last season and said, hey, you're a great coach, we know you're a great coach, but maybe it's this time for you to go and be able to hit your home run, and maybe it's time for us to get a new coach and move along in a different direction too.
Sort of like a Scott Niedermayer situation in New Jersey. Lamorello telling him, go out and you make your money. It's like you've done all that you could do here. You've won a Stanley Cup. Go out and make your money. Yeah, I mean it makes.
Yeah, I say that and not wanting it to come out in a negative way, because I think the Ilitch family still appreciates it, and I'm confident that they'd like him to stay. But at some point here, this has to become tiresome for the Ilitch family as well.
What I'm curious about is the direction he goes, and not to include Detroit. And there's a possibility he stays in Detroit. I'm not ruling that out, but whether he goes for the team like an Edmonton or a Buffalo, which has a lot of young assets, but it are going to take a couple years to sort of put together, form, and he would have a lot of input, obviously, on the young guys like Reinhardt and Eichel and McDavid and all the kids in Edmonton, or he wants to go to a more ready-made situation like a Philadelphia or the Islanders or maybe even St. Louis that could contend for a Stanley Cup pretty quickly based on the talent on hand. It's going to be interesting to see which direction he goes, because if he goes to Edmonton, I think it's acceptable that that team might take a year or two to get into the position where they become a playoff team and a playoff contender. But those other situations, they're going to expect him to make the playoffs and have success right away.
Well, the other factor too to consider is how much emphasis does he put on maybe going and coaching in Canada. I mean, he's a proud Canadian. He's won a Canadian gold medal twice at the Olympic Games. There's been a lot of discussion about Connor McDavid ending up with a Canadian team. Will he take that? And he's a Western Canadian guy. He's not from Alberta, but does he consider that as well? I mean, I think all the factors are in play. I think. Some people think, well, he wouldn't go to Buffalo, but you can't rule that out because Buffalo has two combinations. They have an owner who's richer than God.
Yep.
And I looked it up, and I think if you Google Terry Pegula's net worth, I think it says $3.8 billion. When you can buy the Buffalo Bills, considering what that team was worth and what everybody was willing to do in order to get it, that says you're pretty well healed. And so I think he could go. I wouldn't rule out. Now again, I don't know how he feels about going to Buffalo in terms of, does he even know does he know Tim Murray? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a relationship between Murray and Babcock going back to the Anaheim organization when they play. I guess he was. Murray was a scout with Anaheim.
Yeah, did he? I mean, I know that's the case, but was he really tight with him? I've heard both.
I don't know.
I don't know. But anyway, Pegula could pay him big dollars.
Sure.
And he could end up with Jack Eichel and Reinhardt and Evander Kane. And I don't know that the Sabres are like years and years away from competing. So, I think you got to sort of factor that in. I think initially people say, wow, he's not going to go to Buffalo. I'm not so sure about that. And the Islanders, I don't know enough about their ownership to know whether they'd be willing to pay. But, to me, that's an intriguing team. Tavares, I think Babcock would like to have a superstar. I think he likes Sidney Crosby. I think Tavares is a Crosby-type player. And they have Boychuk and Leddy, so he's got, he hasn't had that puck mover in Detroit since Lidstrom retired, so I think he'd appreciate, Leddy, and so I think he's going to be overwhelmed by his options, and and what about we don't even talk about what about St. Louis? Right. That's an interesting,
good team. I mean, it's a really good team, right?
Really good team. It's camera ready. It's ready to go. So
what I want to know is this, because I've heard mixed reports on this, Kevin. But you know him way better than almost probably anybody out there knows him. Do you think, how important is this whole thing, like Mike said? Because I've heard different people saying today that it's important that he gets sort of not a GM role, but a lot more control than he's had in the past.
Yeah, but he makes his own control. Like,
right.
The Red Wings, I think, have always wanted Jacob Kindle to get his shot, but Babcock doesn't like him, and
right.
And but in his position, wouldn't you want more control?
Absolutely, no. And again, you're negotiating for coaches everywhere to a degree, so he can make a statement here that coaches deserve more control. And even though I do agree that the other coaches aren't going to get $5 million, it still pushing the bar forward pushes the bar forward.
Yeah.
The $1 million coach now gets a 1.5 or 1.75 if he gets 5. So that's this whole thing goes. There's a lot to this.
Yeah.
And I know that TSN's Darren Drager was discussing this morning, and he mentioned the fact that Babcock was very heavily influencing on Kenny Holland when he signed Stephen Weiss, that he wanted Stephen Weiss as part of the Red Wings, and that was sort of a hint of, you better be careful about what influence Babcock has on player personnel because Stephen Weiss didn't.
Because of one player? I mean,
yeah, exactly. I mean,
Well,
I don't really think that's fair. I mean,
it's multiple players. I actually have stories where Babcock is quoted as saying he had reservations about Yuri Hudler's skating, and then after he ended up leaving, then all of a sudden Mike has mentioned that how much he liked Hudler. Well, that always wasn't the case. That's unfair because Babcock, a lot of times players go up and down in their eyes of their coaches. So I mean that's not unusual. But my point is that Ken Holland has a long history of knowing how to develop good teams, and Mike Babcock has never had to do that. He's just had to coach them, and he does that really, really well. So I think it's fair to wonder what does Babcock know as much about player development and coaching, or player development and player procurement as enough to warrant getting that level of power.
Right, and here's the other argument. Someone made this to me today. I was talking to another team GM, and I said, well, what do you think of Babcock? And he said, well, I heard you talking the other day about Hitchcock perhaps getting fired, and he said Hitchcock's won one playoff series in the last 4 years. What's Babcock won? And he said one playoff series in the last 4 years. He said it's not, it's a different kind of team perhaps, but there is a level of which you could say, okay, if they're going to if these big numbers are coming in, I could see Detroit saying, well, maybe, I forget who I heard I was on XM today. I heard Boomer Gordon talking, and he said that having read the Bill Walsh coaching book last year, where Bill Walsh basically says sometimes there comes a point at which you're just sick of them and they're just sick of you.
Yeah.
That's what Walsh says. And when that time's there, and I almost got the impression last night in some of his things he was saying, and maybe I was reading too far into it, that there was a little bit of that. Did you see that at all?
Yeah, no, I know what it's all you're talking about, but in fairness to Babcock in the playoffs, like some people think that getting that team in the playoffs last year was his finest.
I totally agree. Yeah. I brought up that same point.
Yeah.
I'm like, this team's been in the playoffs the last 4 years.
And this Red Wing team has, how many teams are able to change their identity? And they over a short period of time they lost both Rafalski and Lidstrom. They're top two defensemen, and Lidstrom obviously is a Hall of Famer. And how many coaches are able to take a team that at one point, I remember specifically in one game where they had 13 players from their American League affiliate. And I think they won that game, as I recall watching it. But anyway, he was able to get that team that was primarily an AHL team,
right,
into the playoffs and extend the streak. So I almost think he does his best work in the midst of adversity. And Ken Holland says all the time that Mike Babcock is the best prepared coach that he's ever seen. Yeah. And that was evident last night. Like Cronwell and Zedlicki were both out of the lineup, so two of their top six defensemen. And did the Red Wings seem like they were at a disadvantage?
Nope.
Yeah, no.
No, those two players stepped in. Now, full marks to those players, but I also think that Babcock had his team ready to play.
Yeah,
in a game 7.
And he played most of the season without one of his better forwards in Franzen. I mean, he was hurt for most of the year, and Stephen Weiss was hurt as well at times. So him being able to incorporate all those Grand Rapids kids, Tatar and Yurko and Nyquist, and they just did the line keeps coming, and he plugs them in and fits them in, and they fit into the system, and it just goes. And it's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be curious about. If he does stay in Detroit or if he goes someplace else, is he's benefited from that pipeline of young talent. Some of these other organizations don't have that well of and depth of talent. What he can do, what he can work with with less.
Yeah, well, there's an old joke that I heard many years ago about a German engineer who was brought in by Ford Motor Company to come and look at their machinery and how they need to make changes to their machinery to become more efficient. And he took some chalk, he had a box of chalk, and he came and he marked a line on the machinery where it needed to be cut back or reduced or whatever, and he just would draw on the machines. And he walked through the whole factory and he drew chalk lines on all the machines. And then when he left, he went back to Germany. He sent a bill for $1 million. And when the Ford accounting department got the bill, they said, we need an itemized bill for why you're charging $1 million. And he sent back a bill that said 24 cents for chalk and $999,999.24 for knowing how to use it. The point I make about Babcock is he does have that pipeline, for sure.
Yeah.
But he knows how to utilize it. And I made this point the other day, but it bears repeating so I can try to get the name right this time. Landon Ferraro, not Ray. Landon Ferraro was on nobody's radar this season. And Landon Ferraro had a good season in Grand Rapids, and then out of the clear blue, late in the season, Mike Babcock wakes up and says, I'm going to use this big goal scorer this season in Grand Rapids and put him on my fourth line and give myself a different look to that fourth line. He plugged in Landon Ferraro, and I swear that fourth line looked a lot better with Ferraro. I mean, he knew how to use the chalk.
Right.
He knows how to take those guys and plug them in, and that's where his effectiveness is as a coach. He has a good feel for lines and chemistry and getting the most out of his players, and he pushes the button. Now, that's where he runs afoul of the players a little bit. He's a little bit confrontational. Scotty Bowman never spoke to his players, so there was tension. And he got a lot out of them because, he would set them out or bench and whatever. But it wasn't the same as the tension with Mike, because Mike is pretty direct.
Right.
Mike will tell you, this podcast, this is just your worst effort.
Yeah, right.
So,
we need more of that because
no, we really don't.
But that's so funny.
Yeah, but anyway, that's my point of Babcock. That he's a complicated man. I'm fascinated by him, to be honest with you. I enjoy hearing him speak. I enjoy talking to him. He's a man that is big on respect. He tries to, show respect to the people that he's working with. But he's also has a pretty big ego, and that spills over. And sometimes that causes, friction. So. You
should write a bio. He sounds like a biography, Kevin. That sounds like another biography for you in the future.
Yeah, I'd like to write that. So
really good.
I've kind of got a line that I've got to move out first before I move on to that one. So
yeah. So let's move on to what's happening tonight. So we get into tonight's games, and some people were there was a funny thing on the Twitter today. People were freaking out, but this is a little bit out. Tomorrow night's game. People were freaking out that Tampa, has to come back and play again tomorrow night. And I just don't get that. I mean, this is the problem with going 7 games. I mean, they have to come back, and it's not. I think that I don't have any problem with Tampa playing tomorrow night. I don't know.
Nor do I.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
hey, they played 3 games in 4 nights during the regular season, and I'm not equating the effort and the tension and everything else that a game 7 in a first round match has, but they played back-to-back nights during the regular season. They're professionals. It's not going to be a problem for them to go to Montreal and play in game 1. Will they win it? Who knows? I'm just saying I don't think that they're stressing over the fact that they have to get on a plane and go to Montreal and play tomorrow night.
Right.
We've created this monster.
Yes.
That is worry over the proper rest. In the old days, and I've had discussions with players about this. They loved it when they'd play 3 back-to-back games or three games in 4 nights, because it meant they didn't have to practice. and nobody liked to practice. And B, they just like playing. They like playing games. And now all of a sudden we talk about, well, they're the biorhythms and they're sore and all that. And we sort of created this spectacle that if you play back-to-back games, like, oh my, this is just so.
Kevin, in the 80s, if it was a best of 7 series, say it started on a Wednesday, they would play the 2 games Wednesday, Thursday. They would have a day for travel, and then games 3 and 4 would be Saturday, Sunday. There was no game in between.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I mean,
we've created this monster, and now and we feed it all the time by talking about that. Like, how many writers write about, they had 3 games in 4 nights. What can you expect? This is,
Well, somewhere, Taylor Swift's going to get blamed for something. That always happens every playoff series. Like, every playoff year, there's a way, Montreal Canadiens have to play 2 games in 3 nights because Taylor Swift is in.
Well, Eric Clapton's being blamed in New York because he has a concert on Friday and they had to start the series on tonight.
And to anyone who says that, what do we say back to them? Eric Clapton is way bigger than the Rangers.
Clapton is God.
The Rangers need to sit back and be happy that Clapton's not mad that he's going to probably get like a shorter day to sound check or has something else. That's what it comes down to.
Well, what I always find just amusing too is as people say, well, don't the Rangers understand that in April and May and June you shouldn't hit Madison Square Garden? Yeah, right. A multi-million-dollar company with a multi-million-dollar payday.
Yeah.
Like, you think,
What about the circus? I mean, how many times did the circus going to Madison Square Garden?
I mean, the circus is a huge payday. They'll do 3 shows a day in the circus, and they'll turn that building over 3 times. That's just I mean, people just
and elephants are bigger than the Rangers too.
Elephants are big. Ringling Brothers.
Something they produce is a lot bigger, but just kidding.
Right? I mean, don't you think the Barnum and Bailey? I wonder who makes more money in a year, the Barnum and Bailey Circus or the NHL. I bet it's pretty close. But I think at the end of the day,
I don't know, but I'll Google it while you're talking and see what I can.
Excellent. Yeah, see what the Bailey Circus brings in per year, and then let's find out what the salary cap is for an elephant while you're there, just to make sure. But
so the
seriously, folks,
is the excrement escrow? No, just kidding.
Yeah, and you can't even go to a circus. Can I bring this up for a second? You can't even go to a circus these days without being accosted by animal rights activists, and I get it, but at the same time, these elephants aren't being chased by lions. So I'm just saying that's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, Eklund, you're not gonna like this.
Okay, what?
Oh, hold on, though. I'll be here. I'm just double-checking this. Just hang with me for a while.
Okay. As a true journalist, I expect you to double-check this.
Yeah, I am. That's what I'm double-checking.
2 sources.
Very good.
2 sources.
You're the only true journalist we have around here, Kevin, so make sure you check this twice. So, I mean, Eric Clapton, and now there's a weird schedule in the second round. I mean, but no matter what the NHL does, they can never get as weird as the NBA is. I mean, the NBA
I thought it curious that the game 2, because game 1 is tonight for New York and Washington. Game 2 is Saturday at 12:30, and the reason being is because the Kentucky Derby is on Saturday.
Which again is way bigger.
well, not only that, and you could have said, okay, well, why don't they just play the game at 7 o'clock or 7:30 after the Kentucky Derby? Well, you've got the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. You've got so many things. Going on in the sporting world that they want, to carve out their own little area, so they can have the Rangers and Capitals play, and everything. If they did it later, then they would be stepping on. If it goes into overtime or double overtime, are they going to retain their viewers when people want to go over and who spent $100 to watch Mayweather and Pacquiao? So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and are you going to watch this fight?
Me?
I'm not.
I'm going to try to find some place that's showing it, or maybe try to find a website that's showing it, but...
I'm going to do what I always do for big fights. Sit in front of my black and white television and wait for artist renditions of rounds. That's what I want to do. I want to sit there and I want an artist to draw pictures for me of what happened in each round.
So you're going to wait for the Leroy Neiman lithograph.
Well, you know how boxing used to be covered. That was the greatest thing in the world. It was like these things, you know.
Well, the one
every sport had to have, like, if the NHL, like, you can't watch this game, instead we're going to draw pictures, actual pictures.
The one interesting thing is that now in the world of social media, on Twitter, I mean, you're going to be able to get essentially a blow-by-blow of the fight. So even if you don't want to spend $100 to give to HBO and Showtime to watch this, you'll be able to follow it, pretty much instantaneously by social media and find out what's going on. So, I mean, I may just do that because I'm just not going to spend $100.
I don't know either of these boxers. I'm sorry, I'm not a boxing guy, but
I'm sort of, but I mean not. I mean this could be the last great fight in terms of because the sport is dying and they're two of the bigger names. But let's talk about predictions.
Yeah, let's get into predictions. Meanwhile, Kevin is obviously running into issues.
I am.
With coming up with the Barnum and Bailey Circus. So that's okay. We're gonna let you go second or third while you come up with this. So we're gonna start with you, Mike. We're gonna start with Washington and New York. And what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this is the most difficult match that the Rangers could have had. I think the Capitals are, they're going to be a challenge to them. I said in a previous webcast that I think the size of the Capitals, especially in their, the bottom six, guys like Brouwer and Chimera and Tom Wilson, who made an impact in the series against the Islanders, are going to throw the body around. And the Rangers, they're not small like Montreal is small, but they're relatively small up front, and that's going to be, I think, an area where the Capitals are going to try to exploit. Normally, the Rangers enjoy a sizable advantage in goal and on the blue line. I think that's not the case. I mean, Holtby is not as good as Lundqvist, but he's pretty close. The Capitals' defense is not as good as the Rangers, but it's pretty close. The additions of Niskanen and Orpik really helped the depth of that blue line. And I think the key for the Rangers is, can they limit the damage that Backstrom and Ovechkin create? And if they can do that, I think they'll win the series. I think it's going 7 games. I think this is going to be the toughest of the 4 series, but I think the Rangers will win in 7.
Rangers in 7. Huh. I'm going back and forth on this right now. I'm having a really hard time with this. So, but Kevin, do you have information for us?
I do. On the Ringling Brothers search, I think it's hard to pin down, but it's somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion.
Oh wow! So they are
and,
not as
but
big
it was
as
purchased for. This was, I think, the most interesting. It was purchased for $8 million in 1967.
Wow, $8 million. That's crazy.
That's like the New York Yankees being bought by Steinbrenner in '72 for, I think it was $11 or $12 million, and now it's worth billions.
Mike Ilitch, I believe, bought the Red Wings for $8 million.
Yeah,
I think that's right. But
wow, that's amazing. I know. I remember the Ed Snyder. I can't remember how much it was. I know he got a loan from a bank to buy the Flyers. But it wasn't. I mean, that's typical now. But it wasn't like a crazy amount. It was when I heard the story. It wasn't just like it was like a really manageable, because, well, obviously we're in a different time era, but wow, I would have expected they made more. I would bet that they're on a decline then and the NHL's on a rise, so we'll give the NHL a little bit of a buzz, because there was a time, I think, when the circus was more popular than the NHL, for sure.
So the circus is making peanuts.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's no one in the circus making the kind of money that the NHL players are making, so I wonder who's actually leaving with more money at the end of the day. Right?
That's a really good point. Well, we know that half the revenue that the NHL is making goes to players.
Right, half the revenue is going to the players. I can guarantee you half the revenue is not going to the dog trainers and the clowns.
To the elephants
and the bearded lady.
The elephants really are working for peanuts.
Yes,
the elephants are working for peanuts, and they're excellent painters. We went to the circus last year, and they have the elephants are painting now. That's the big thing they do. They only work in watercolors, so I thought that was kind of strange. So let's continue on. What are your thoughts on Washington, New York, Kevin?
Well, I like the Rangers. I'm bullish on them, and for really all the reasons that Mike articulated. Their defense, I just think it's difficult to match up with that. I like Washington's defense; it's really improved, but the Rangers' skill level with McDonough, Girardi, Stahl. And then, adding in Keith Yandel, and now Kevin Kline is joining the group, and Boyle as a 6. this is a highly skilled defenseman, and also they're very experienced. And the first three guys I named are three of the better shutdown guys in the league. So they're equipped to deal with the big-bodied Alex Ovechkin. And I kind of think the Capitals, and it's hard to believe because they've always had some gunners, and I like Kuznetsov his arrival now. It seems like this is his coming out party, but it does seem like they're still like a score short. When I watched in the first round, like they could use just another score.
Right.
But the big thing for the Capitals is, and I keep talking about this, but it bears repeating. Trotz has got them comfortable playing playoff style of hockey, which to him means playing in one-goal games and not panicking and being very poised, and they do that. And the Zuccarello injury is big. I know Larry Brooks, who's pretty wired into the Rangers, has said he's out for at least the series and maybe longer. So that's big. But I'm still taking the Rangers. Lundqvist is got this team to the final. I think they're scoring. They've just figured it out how to get scoring up and down their lineup, and I think they're just a deeper team. I think they're more battle tested. They've been around the block, so I'm taking the Rangers.
The Rangers, okay. So
yeah, and the replacement for Zuccarello is going to be Marty St. Louis, which is not exactly peanuts.
Well, no,
it hurts their depth, but him stepping in on that number one line will I don't think it'll affect them that much.
I don't know. I'm going with the Caps on this one. I am, and I went with the Caps. I was thinking about it's so funny. Like yesterday's Cranky Hockey Writers show, we did the predictions. I kind of did them on the spot. Like I hadn't really thought about the series that much yet at that point. And so as I was doing them today, I was thinking I couldn't even remember what I picked on some of them because I knew I picked because some of these series are so close in my head. But this one I know I picked the Caps and I'm staying with the Caps. I think the Caps have a little bit of a destiny feel to me. And then this is not really a logical pick, but just the fact that they won that Game 7 at home, and I've been in that building 3 times when they've lost a Game 7 in the playoffs in Washington, and I know the big deal of getting over that hump. There's definitely something to that. Plus, Trotz is the best coach that they've had in years, in my mind. So take that as well.
Best coach since Murray.
Yeah, yep. I would completely agree with that.
For sure.
And this is, he is he's not going to get outcoached in this series. Trotz could outcoach someone else, but he's not going to get outcoached. So I think Ovechkin is, the kind of player you need to score. He's going to give Lundqvist fits. I think the most intriguing thing in this round will be Ovechkin versus Lundqvist. I think that's going to be a great thing to watch. Because Ovechkin, and I think Kuznetsov is absolutely turning into, a Tarasenko-esque superstar. And I really want to see. I think that all these things are coming together at the Caps at the right time. It feels like the timing where the Rangers had an okay series versus the Penguins, but it wasn't anything spectacular. The Capitals are way better than the Penguins, so if the Rangers play like they did against the Penguins, they'll be out of this series. So the Rangers have to pick it up, and I don't know that they can. I don't think they. I also think it hurts that they played a team like the Penguins in the first round, because what I talked about yesterday too is I really do believe that there's a carryover from round to round. If you play an easy team in the first round, it doesn't benefit you sometimes when you go up against a team in the second round that just came through a really tough series. Like this was the Rangers won the series. It was tough, but it wasn't agonizing. Like the Capitals went through a really tough emotional series against a team that was really, they were better than the Islanders, but the Islanders were giving it everything they had. And it was, it was a 1-goal series at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm going with the Caps in 6. And now if we do the Owen technique on this one, this is a tough one. We have a park ranger. So the Rangers are named after Central Park. And
why is it a park ranger and not a U.S. Army Ranger?
Right.
Well, because it is named after Central Park. I did some research. That's how the Rangers get their name, right? Central Park.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yes. So the Central Park Rangers.
Then that's appropriate. Okay.
Yes. Central Park Ranger versus a government worker. All right. So neither of these is going to kill. Neither of these is going to absolutely just slay the other. So I'm trying to figure out the better way.
Yeah, but the Rangers have to deal with wild animals. Of course,
especially in New York City.
Especially in New York City. I think a Central Park Ranger, because there are rangers. Central Park is a national park, and there are Rangers there, and I've seen them, and I said, you guys, I went up to one of them last year. We went to the Central Park Zoo, and I said, you guys are what the New York Rangers are named after, and they're like, yeah, we know it. It's great. This guy in a green jacket, with a little flag and a little tree. I'm like, that's what the Rangers are named after. And I'm gonna say that's gonna take down a government worker any day of the week. So I'm going. Yeah, I think this is the Rangers in the Owen theory. All right, so let's move on to the next game tonight, which is the Flames versus the Ducks. Let's start with you want to start with this one, Kevin? Why don't you start with this one?
I know where Owen's going on this one. Just because we've all had roasted duck.
Roasted duck.
Yeah, to me, I'm so pro Flames, and I'm almost rooting for them. I've just been real impressed with the job that Bob Hartley's done, and as I keep saying, it's really been a season and a half. Everybody talks as if this is brand new, but he was doing it at the end of last season as well.
Yep.
And I like their top line, and I like how it's going, and I think it's a nice mixture. And their defense they're just shot blocking fools, and their goaltending. I think Hiller's going to be motivated to the team that sort of cast him aside to go with the younger, better version of himself. I think he'll be motivated. However, the Ducks with Getzlaf and Kessler, this is exactly what they anticipated would happen when they got Kessler, that they would be very difficult to play with in a postseason series. That's a lot of toughness and grit to deal with, and size.
Clutch players,
Yeah, and the Ducks just have a lot of scoring depth, like Emerson and Tim. To have a guy that dynamic on your fourth line, like that's just crazy. That's just crazy.
Oh, I agree. He is such an underrated player.
Well, he's you don't get that same spark every game, and that's been the criticism. But when he turns it on, like, wow, he can be a game breaker. And how many game breakers are on the fourth line?
Remember the Red Wings series where he was the best player on the ice?
Yeah, no, that's right. And so I'm taking the Ducks in this series, and it's almost as if, even though they've been at the top of the heap, doesn't it feel like we've been sort of underrating them a little bit? Even though they've been real.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I, underrating them or misunderstanding them. I'm not sure which it is. I think I think that they're getting the respect, but they're also, this team is literally. It appears from the outside like they're getting every bounce. You know what I mean? They're the kind of team that you look at them and they're like, against Winnipeg, they toyed with Winnipeg, it felt like. Like, it was such an emotional series. The Jets are like, just all in. The fans are going crazy. And they would just – it was like they were playing against their little brother, the Ducks. Like, they would let them hang around, and then bam, well, forget it. We're going to just score a goal here. And that's it. And they just toyed with the Jets. And –
well, I don't know if people are underrating them or expecting them to come up short like they have off and on since they won the cup.
Here's the thing, right, Mike? You're right. Bruce Boudreau has never won a second-round playoff series, right? He's never gotten past the second round of the playoffs. That's out there too, right? So that's hanging out there in the wind.
And to Kevin's point about Anaheim's depth, guys like Silverberg and Bolesky, they produced in that 4-game sweep. It wasn't just Getzlaf. It wasn't just Kessler. Corey Perry had a fantastic series. To my, like in this series, like, my heart is with the Flames, but my head is with the Ducks. I think the Flames.
Wasn't that an album in the '70s?
It was Ambrosia.
My head is with the Ducks.
I think that the Flames can compete with them. They have they're tenacious. They're playing fantastic hockey, but I don't know, size-wise, depth-wise, experience-wise, whether they can match up with Anaheim. The one area where I'm a little curious about for Anaheim is the goaltending situation. Anderson played really well against Winnipeg, but if he falters, do they go to Gibson, or do they stick with Anderson? That could be a little bit of an Achilles heel. Whereas I think Calgary's going to go with Hiller, and if they're going to go with Hiller no matter what, I can't see them going away from him, even though Ramo came in that one game. I think that's going to be the Ducks in 6. I would love to see the Flames continue this and play, and but I almost think that their season is a success already. So whatever they do now is just gravy.
Yeah, but I'll say this. I think when you talk about underratedness, Kevin, I think we are underrating the Flames offense. I think that is a dynamic group that is just so young and so unknown that I don't know that. I mean, the Ducks' weakness this year, in my opinion, was their defense. So I think that you're looking at a dynamic offense versus a defense that can be suspect. I mean, I know they went out and they got some players, and they traded a player with the Penguins, but I think that really at the end of the day, they really have. I still think their defense is their weakness, and I thought it was against Winnipeg. Even Winnipeg just didn't have a whole lot of offense, and Winnipeg was just they're playing without players still. So I think that the Flames have so little to lose that they're going to win this series. I think they just have nothing to lose, and they're in that spot. They are like. It just feels to me, and like we said before, and they've been talking about it, and I think everyone's jumped on Eric Jahashik's story the other day that everybody, TSN, and he talked about yesterday on the Cranky Hucker, is that they haven't won a game, that Calgary hasn't won a game, and they've lost 20 in a row in Anaheim. Which just means that I'm telling you, if you have money, you bet on Calgary tonight. There's just no way that Calgary's not winning that game tonight. I almost want to join some kind of hockey gambling site. I've never done it before, but I almost want to do it just to pick this game because I think they're going to take it. But yes, as Kevin, you properly foreshadowed, the Owen theory on this is not good for the roasted ducks. Throwing a duck and a bunch of flames into a pit together is not going to come out well unless, of course, you have some orange sauce. But
yeah, I've seen the result of that hanging in Chinese grocery store.
Right, and I think that's where we're going with this. And finally, I have a question for you, Kevin, of course, because since we're talking about this, we have to give you the ultimate Reddit question. I don't know if you know the ultimate Reddit question. You've never done an AMA, Ask Me. You probably don't even know what we're talking about. But
no clue. Okay, go ahead.
The ultimate Reddit question is this. Would you rather face 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck in a battle?
This is why I love doing podcasts. Okay, 100
duck-sized horses
or 1 horse-sized duck. I think I would rather face the. That's a tough one because those little horses, man, they can nip at you, and there's too many of them. You can't fend them off.
That's a lot of little
ducks. See, here's the thing. As many of you know, I own a pit bull.
Right.
And he is a old pit bull, and he has this thing. He dislikes ducks at a high level, at a very high level, and he they invade his airspace. If they come, just flying overhead, he will stop and he will bark at them and he will let them know that they are not to invade his airspace. And I've seen some just crazy ducks who've argued with him over it. Who've just, and I thought to myself, man, I don't know. And if they were as big as a horse, so I just because there's
you can
just
think
too
about
many,
this until tomorrow.
There's too many horses.
Right.
I think I'm going to go with the duck.
You're going with the big duck.
Yeah. I would only have to kill one.
Yeah, those little horses. There's too many.
Horses are going to be a pain in the ass. They're going to be. That's like that's like a bunch of really fast cats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bucking at you. I've not been able to figure out what to do yet. I think I would do the same as you, Kevin. I think I would go for the one big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
first of all, you could keep track of one duck.
Right. You can. Well, we always do. Keep your ducks in a row, right? So you have to. It's easy to keep your ducks in a row if it's one big horse-sized duck.
Right. But we would never be able to keep track of 100 horses.
Right, because you would think you would win, and then another horse would bite your leg.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
or
pretty,
worse.
or worse, or way worse, right? So I'm glad we finally got that question answered on this podcast.
Inquiring minds wanted to know.
That was pretty important. Yeah.
This might be my favorite moment ever on these podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's I personally, the reason I want to see the Ducks eliminated is one reason and one reason only.
You don't want to make the flight out to Anaheim?
No, I don't want to go to Anaheim. I know that's why you don't want the Ducks. I'm with you a little bit on this one. This year's going to be crazy. Daughter's getting bat mitzvahs right in the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals. So it's going to be nuts. So, but anyway, yes, what I want, I'm tired of when I type Ducks into my iPhone of being autocorrected with either the D being replaced with an F or the U being replaced with an I. Like the fact, it's so many times I typed Ducks in and it comes out. And this recently, I literally typed in probably the most embarrassing tweet of my life. Because the U was replaced with an I, and I said something like, it's been a long series for the, and yeah, so that's just, I am tired of being autocorrected with Ducks.
So you only have the only X-rated iPhone.
I don't understand it. I don't understand why Apple would think I wanted to write the word starting with an F instead of Ducks. I don't know why they would want to autocorrect me. I think that's the way I'm going on this. I don't know. Anyway, let's just leave it there.
Yes.
That's all with the time we have for today on the Hockey Buzzcast. Remember, if you ever face Kevin, you want to bring 100 horse-sized ducks or duck-sized horses. No, duck-sized horses. 100 duck-sized horses. I can never get this straight. Without the buzz, it's just hockey. Talk to you soon.